Welcome back to the Compliance Alliance Business Ally Spotlight, and I'm very excited about my guest today, Daniel Andrews of Playground. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how's it going? Excited to be here.
Very glad that you're here. I've been watching you and noticing some things that you're doing in the industry. Although you're a relatively new player as a company, you're not new to childcare. So first of all, tell us about your company and why you founded it and what you're here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Daniel Andrews. I'm the founder CEO here at Playground. At a high level, Playground is an app and a website for managing childcare businesses. How I got into this. So my entire family runs childcare businesses, and my background's in tech. So I and my brother actually paid for college by building apps and websites for various startups in Silicon Valley. And I'd go back home every single summer, and I'd go back home for winter breaks, and all these times I go visit my mom and her preschool.
Yeah.
I'd worked there growing up in summer camp, but every time it was kind of shocking. You go from these high-tech offices with all of these um, amazing, technology, software, everything across the board. And then my mom's office was floor-to-ceiling file cabinets. It was paper and pencil everywhere, a lot of manual processes, and it was just kind of shocking, the disparity between the two. And so me and my brother actually set out to go and solve that and see what we could do. How could we bring some of this 21st century software, the Silicon Valley technology, to my family's business? And so that's how we started Playground. We started off actually as an attendance software for my mom's school. My aunt runs two schools. My grandma's a preschool administrator. My sister's an occupational therapist for childcare. Their school started using it. It started growing from there. A lot of friends and friends of friends and family all were using it, and we decided, wow, we're really onto something. And that's how Playground was essentially born.
Well, it's what do they say? The necessity is the mother of all invention. Have you ever heard that statement before?
Yeah,
And a compliment I have for you and your leadership and for Playground is your agility and the fact that you're very quick to build new functionality. And I come from a tech background, so I can speak with a little bit of authority about this. There's one thing to push out content or new functionality. It's another to have it be quality and to serve a particular need. And I think you're finding that sweet spot of getting it out with quality, serving a particular need. So my compliments to you.
thank you. I appreciate it. We care a lot, so it's very nice to hear the compliments for the work.
So let's bring our two worlds together. When we talk about compliance and the business that you're in, and of course the experiences that you've had, what do you think the driving critical business issue is? And if you want to speak to it around compliance or just in general, either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so there's kind of like a genre of issues that we solve for, and a lot of it actually does come from the compliance aspect. We initially started off as an app called Carline and later rebranded as Playground, but
Okay.
we started that because during pickup and drop off at my mom's school, in California, they legally had to collect a signature, both a pickup and drop off. They had 350 families, and so there was no way that they were going to know every single mom, dad, babysitter, aunt, uncle, grandparent who was picking up or dropping off. And
Right.
so in order to be legally compliant there, you need to, track who is authorized to pick up or drop off, especially in the case of custody battles or, someone random, unfortunately, try to come and pick up children. And that is incredibly scary. And so some of that compliance actually serves for the safety of the students, of the families, of the entire school. Um, but yeah, so in general, it's the scope for Playground has expanded dramatically since then. But in general, the main idea is taking on a lot of that back office automation. And more often than not, that has to do with compliance in one way or another. Whether that's policies that need to be complied with around billing, for example, overdue charges, overdue fees. Maybe those fall more under like standard operating procedures or some other types of policies. But um, there's that. There's the food program, making sure that all of your food, you're complying with CACFP, so that way your meals are allowable and reimbursed. Um, but generally, it just comes down to those kind of operating procedures, those day-to-day aspects of running a business, especially in a regulated space like childcare, where there are so many things you have to be on top of as a business owner, as an administrator, and we try to take a lot of that off of their plates. There is another whole aspect along hiring, but we mostly focus on the administration side of childcare programs.
Mhm. What I love about what you were saying too is you wove in safety, because that's something else that I hear an awful lot about is it's not just compliance, but when the day is done, being compliant is creating a safe environment for your staff, for your families, for your children. And something that we teach on at the Compliance Alliance is take a look at your website from the family that has already agreed to choose your location. So prior to choosing your location, you might be looking at location, availability, tuition, curriculum, ratios. But the day that you drop your child off and you're pulling out of the parking lot, what's going through your mind?
Yep. There's a lot there. I just watched my sister go through this. The first time she's dropping off her kids at childcare. It's like the first time someone else is taking care of her children. And that's like a crazy process. She Things that she was worried about before became paramount, right? Um, and that is incredibly important to making sure that that security and safety, that feeling that your staff know what they're doing, they have a standard operating procedure, they know how to operate. If there's a fire, what am I going to do? Um,
Right.
there's some tools that we use to help calm down parents and make them feel excited about their child being in their care. For example, one thing we recommend is sending over a photo or a video to the family within the first couple minutes of them dropping off, so that way they immediately see how happy and excited that child is to be there. And that
Right.
does help with some of that. Um, yeah, but like the communication aspect is also of paramount importance, like making sure you have open and honest communication with the families about what's going on, how that's all being managed.
Absolutely. And back to the SOPs and the policies, who's communicating with the parents? How are they communicating with the parents? What's acceptable communication practices? And that gets back to your point about SOPs. That's all under the umbrella of compliance. And with Playground, you're able to begin to streamline that and to go to a digital environment as opposed to the sticky notes or the clipboards or, like you said, that pickup line. That's unimaginable of how could you possibly know who's an authorized pickup person, let alone I don't even want to begin to imagine what the pickup line is like. But those are all steps of improvement in the processes, and that's where SOPs, policies, all feed back to quality, safety, and compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of work that goes into creating a safe and amazing program, let alone the educational aspect and the caring and the nurturing that is also going on in these schools. There really truthfully is a lot to manage. And we recognize that, we see that. Oftentimes we see people working into the wee hours of the night, just trying to make sure everything's handled properly and that the staff are properly trained and everything's up to date. And so there's a lot that we do there as well. For example, expired documents, sending out notifications. That's huge. And CACFP, just to bring that one back, if you don't renew annually, you actually will not get reimbursed for that child, which means you're leaving money on the table. If hopefully there's no fire or emergency or anything else, but if that does happen and you handle it poorly, like that reflects really poorly on you, reflects poorly on your staff. It could be very difficult to recover from something like that, especially when these parents are really trusting you with their most prized possession, their children. Um, and
Yes.
so if you're failing in some of these other ways, they start to call into question the education and the nurturing and the care for their child as well. And that's where things can get very scary.
Yes. We often talk about our stakeholders, and in the end, the common denominator is reputation. Your reputation about how well your program is managed, to those pillars you just mentioned. I know we're going to have some future conversations where we can dig deeper into this. I'm holding myself back because I want to dive deeper into SOPs, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. But for the purpose of this interview, could you share with our listeners why you chose to align with the Compliance Alliance and become a business ally?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been following Lynn's work for a very long time and absolutely love everything she's done for the community and also for the industry as a whole. We are just so excited to be working along her and the team and the Compliance Alliance. Many of the things that we focus on and pride ourselves on are the ability to assist with many of these aspects of compliance, whether it's complying with policies, SOPs, as we mentioned before, complying with some of your policies with families, safety and security of the children and of the staff. Um, we are very large advocates for compliance. Sometimes we act in a consultative manner, and we are super excited to be partnering with the expert in this space when it comes to compliance in early child education.
Well, we're delighted to have you part of the team as well. So we're just going to wrap here, Daniel, with kind of a fun set of questions. I get insights from people, and perhaps I break some of my preconceived notions. So I just like to ask some fun questions. Would you consider yourself a dog or a cat person, and why?
Dog person. I grew up with a dog my entire life. It's like a companion. Uh, the infinite loyalty is really drawing to me.
Yes, yes. They are man's best friend, exactly. And how about mountain or ocean? And this is almost a trick question, and I'll say why afterward, but go ahead.
So mountain, I'm a big hiker and I'm a big snowboarder. And that is my happy place, is being on the mountain. I do love beaches. I'm from Los Angeles. I spend a lot of time at beaches, but there's nothing like a mountain for me.
Okay. But you're based in New York City, am I right?
I am. We have pretty much neither.
I was just gonna say, so it wasn't really a fair question for you, but um, I am gonna park here for a second. So you have a unique model that you've chosen New York City, but you're also wanting your people in New York City. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure as many of our listeners will also see is like having people in person is incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
A lot of us were affected by COVID where we had to go remote and do remote education, and it's just not the same. Um, the ability to see people in person, form those bonds, form those relationships, being able to bounce off ideas is incredibly impactful. There is a lot of infrastructure that is required to have a well-functioning remote team. Structured meetings, structured times, a lot of communication. You oftentimes need to incredibly over-communicate in order for remote teams to work well. And it's kind of a shortcut in our minds that we're able to just work in person. If you need something, you tap someone on the shoulder and you get some info. Same thing as walking into a classroom with a teacher. If you want to check up on something, it's very easy because they're in person. You can just go and check in and see what's happening. Furthermore, you mentioned our technological speed, how fast we're shipping quality software. A lot of that comes from the pool of ideas of just overhearing conversations. So overhearing conversations people have with customers, with providers, with parents, with staff,
Yep.
overhearing conversations between marketing and people who are managing onboarding. The culmination of like all these ideas just kind of happens much more naturally. And so we are very large advocates of in-person work for as long as it is able to work out for us.
Well, keep it up because it's one of your differentiators and it's part of the culture that you've created. And I did follow on social media how somebody turned $50 into AirPods. It was a number of things that normally you couldn't do for $50, if I have that story straight. Do I?
Yeah, so this is an annual challenge that we and a few of my friends who also run companies do is we have our interns go on Canal Street and they're given 50 bucks and they learn how to negotiate, go back and forth. Oftentimes the list prices are very high, but people are a lot more flexible on things than you might imagine. Something we like to say is almost everything's negotiable. In one way or another, sometimes it's direct money, but other times you can get, there's ways to budge back and forth that might mutually benefit both of you. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes being uncomfortable is a great way to learn. It's not always the case, but in some cases, it is that is a good lesson for you.
Yeah. Well, that was something that I was following. I was like, can I give my $50 to one of your interns and have them go negotiate on my behalf?
We've taught them well. If you ever come visit New York, we'll show you.
All right, that sounds
Yep.
great. Well, Daniel, thank you for today's interview, and we look forward to future episodes with you and the team, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.